Hi, welcome to Musings. I'm your host, Derek, and with me is my co host, Pat.
Hello, everyone.
And we are very excited. This is our first episode. We have no idea what we're doing. We just spent the last hour trying to set up two microphones, so
A productive hour.
really excited about that. But still, no, we are very excited to start our first episode today. We're going to be talking about ourselves, how we got into music, inspirations, and what we have done in music up to this point.
Mm-hmm.
So, really excited to jump into it. I guess we'll just go right into it.
Yeah. Putting me on the...
Who's going first? I forgot.
Put on the spot. Yeah, you put me on the spot. I figured I'm going first.
All right.
That's fine. Yeah.
So,
take it away.
Yeah, so this is Pat. I'm going to interview Pat. We're going to talk a little bit about, you.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't we start with, how did you get into music? What have you done with music?
Okay.
And go from there.
All right. So growing up, music was always a part of my family. My stepfather was actually a DJ. And I think that was the foundation for not just me, as well as my brothers and my sister, that he was DJing all these local areas in Queens. And I think as we got older, my brothers, they eventually took over the reins and they started doing that. And they became really good at themselves. And then when I became an adult, my brother, he was mainly the DJ. He was DJing all across like Queens and Brooklyn at clubs, lounges, parties, pride events. And then he is phenomenal. So I'll get back to him in a second. And then when he was starting to DJ and I was an adult, and he was like, come with me and go to these clubs. We can go backup DJ. I already kind of had an idea of how to work the set, mixing and things like that, So I learned how to work the turntables. And I was always kind of like a backup for a few minutes. Like, let's say he's at the event and he's also playing a further role in the party or whatever it is. He would, hey, Pat, can you jump on the turntables? Just keep the vibe going. So basically, he would always, I kind of just knew his center of like music, what he would try to do. So I would always kind of follow it. I'll just maintain the vibe. I'd maintain the BPM. I maintain certain areas of like, okay, we're playing this type of genre of music. Okay, let's follow that. Like I just knew what songs to follow after. And so that was kind of like my intro, as well as my sister. She did it as well. And I think she's much better than, me. I'm just being honest. And just being honest. And, and so that was my introduction into like music. So it was always a part of my family. So, and then in a couple of years ago, I decided, you know what, this is it. I've always loved the music. I always loved so many different genres. I've always wanted to, the whole technical artistry of production. I just said I had to do it. I had to jump into it. So years ago, and it's funny now I'm thinking back, it's only been 5 years, but I started out first doing lo-fi, R&B, and hip hop music. I worked alongside a couple of content creators, and that was what I was doing for a few years. And then eventually I decided to, you know what? I really liked electronic and house music, and that, and as well as, no disrespect to any other community, but that community alone, it felt like home. The moment I started talking to different producers, different people that are just in that field, it was such a welcoming experience. And then I was like, okay, this is it. This is me. And I decided to change my brand. And I said, you know what, this is what I'm going to do from now on. And working on music and stepping into like just all the technical aspects of house music. There's so many different variety. You call it deep house, you call it tech house, you call it disco house. There's so very variations, but that was pretty much it. I released an album last year, Nowhere Island, on all platforms. And that was my stepping stone. And now, like for me, it's only been 2-3 years doing this in the electronic sphere. And now I'm ready to see what happens next with me. So I'm always in a consistent state of evolution with music.
That's cool. So you said that you worked with your brother a lot, right?
Yeah.
Now was he the first person who kind of showed you the ropes of it, or
Yes.
was there anything else there that I guess kind of helped you kind of start that career, or was it mainly your brother?
Yes. So shout out to my brother Chris. So he was the main DJ that that in my family that after my stepfather, he went in his own direction and he started doing it, as well as my other brother Marlon. But then Chris was my introduction to understanding DJing, and then understanding like uh, BPM, chords, transition, learning to read the crowd, et cetera, et cetera. That type of thing came from him. And then, he's always been music producing for 20 years, and he's has his lane of accolades and everything. And then I was always interested because I always watched him and I always was like, oh, that's so cool, that's interesting, that's dope. And then I told him, like, I really want to do it. I want to jump into the same thing. And he was like, yeah. And so first off, I was very surprised how much the DJ information carried over into music production. I didn't think they would, but they did. And he helped layer, like, here, this is what you want to do. If you're trying to do that, do this. You're trying to learn this, learn that. If you want to learn how to do this, read about this, talk to this person, research this. So the foundation for music production, without a doubt, he played a factor in it, a huge factor. As well as I've talked to many different people, but it was, when you're looking at a digital audio workstation, where there's Fruity Loops, Logic, Ableton, whatever the case may be, it's a lot to the person who's never stepped into it. And now with at the beginning, he helped me like, okay, this is how you do it. If you want to do this, remember this. He showed me about double time, half time, understanding BPMs, chords, understanding these are the genres, understand the rules. And then from there, I started just building. It was my building blocks, and I just started from there. And now, ever since then, like now when I look at a digital audio workstation, I'm no longer intimidated. If anything, I'm curious. My mind is now, it doesn't look at it as nervous. I'm curious. I want to see what happens next when I do this or that or the other.
Yeah. So you're saying your sister, very talented performer herself, and was also a backup DJ. Mm-hmm. So why don't you tell me a little bit more about her and kind of how she has influenced you in your career?
Yeah. She definitely played a factor too. Just seeing her passion / like talent will come alive when she had any instrument, from piano to guitar, anything. Like, she was just, within a matter of time, she was managing like the ability to just like play songs back to you. And she was involved in like talent shows at her schools, and she was just really good. And obviously, that when we were backup DJing, and this is my opinion, I think she's better than me. And but well, no, without a doubt, she is better than me. But it's the fact that like she picked it up, she fell in love with it, the skill, the talent was there, and it all these little things planted the seeds to inspire me to do the same. Because as a listener, I was, I loved music, all kinds of genres, but then, watching her do it, I was like, you know what, I kind of want to do the same thing. And seeing my brother like produce for years, and I've been to studios with him as he was working with different artists, I was like inspired. In 2020, I said to myself, I want to do the same. I want to do the same. I want to jump into it. I want to learn, and I want to now create. So I didn't know how much the DJing aspect carried over. So understanding like BPMs and certain chords and things like that, it helped in the ability to like produce, understanding all these things. But without a doubt, my music was in my family, and I feel like I was like the last real person in the family to take it seriously. And now it's 5 years of me, producing and things like that. I can't like tell you how much it's changed. It changed me as a person, and then it changed how I look at all kinds of music. Because now I'm not just listening as a listener, I'm listening as a producer. So I'm listening to how things are created. I'm hearing the little techniques, I'm hearing little ideas that they're doing. I pick up on those little details a little bit more than I originally did before I started production. So that's kind of like how my family kind of just helped me get into that foundation.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. You talked a lot about your sister. You talked about your brother, your stepfather, and how they all have kind of had a hand in you getting this interest of music production. and where that's taken you.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk a little bit about, we kind of talked about your influences and
Mm-hmm.
who helped to inspire you.
Mm-hmm.
But what have you recently, I guess, been working on?
Mm-hmm.
And, tell us a little bit about current projects, I guess
Right,
you're kind of
sure.
working on.
Like I said, I started in 2020. I originally started making lo-fi R&B and hip hop. When I first started, like I said, as I mentioned before, my brother played uh, a huge role in getting me started because I wanted to do it, but I needed, like, I guess, guidance to know where I'm going. And he helped me understand, hey, you want to do this, learn this, read this, research this, learn about those people. He's like, he was kind of telling me, you already have the understanding. You just need to find a way to utilize it. And that's why it played a huge factor in starting like my production career or journey, if you want to call it. I refer to more of a journey. And over the years, like when I've been involved with different content creators and people that make music, and I did that as a lo-fi, hip hop R&B guy. And I think in 2023, I would say 2023, I decided I was always a fan of electronic and house music. I loved it. I've been to so many different clubs as just just enjoying it. And I decided I always enjoyed it, and I was like, you know what, I want to take my hand in it, and I dipped a little bit, my toe in it a little bit, and then eventually I decided that was this community of other people who enjoy this music, other producers. It was such a welcoming community that I was like, this is it. This is where I belong. And ever since then, I transitioned from being that type of producer to being an electronic and house producer. But don't get me wrong, I can still obviously make those other things, but this is where my real passion is. And ever since then, I can't tell you how much fun, how much of an inspiration these things are in my life. And so now, regarding to 2024, I released an album last year called Nowhere Island, which was my intro into electronic house music, which is a blend of different types of things. It has a little bit elements of house, deep house, pop, reggae, different things, and you'll hear it if you listen to it. It's on all platforms. But before I was on Spotify and Apple Music, I always used SoundCloud as an intro to get my music out there. And when I first started, obviously everyone's nervous. Everybody's kind of nervous to release your first few sets of music you ever create. But eventually, at a period of time, it became like, you know what? I'm okay with failure. I'm okay with if my first, second, or third track that I make isn't great. And becoming comfortable with failure was absolutely the important factor for me because if anything, if you're no longer afraid to fail, everything else in front of you just looks like opportunity. So I've just became more like excited. I'm like, you know what? Looking at a digital audio workstation, whether it's Fruity Loops, Ableton, Logic, whatever you choose to use, now I'm like, this is a giant like sandbox for me. I'm no longer nervous. I'm curious. What can I do next? What is an interesting factor? Or, oh, what if I did this? What if I did this? What if I switched that? What if I reversed this? It's so for me, that's always been how my journey has been so far. And now I'm just curious to see where it goes from there.
Yeah, I mean that's really exciting stuff. I mean,
Mm.
I've heard a lot of your music that you put out, and it honestly has inspired me to even get an interest in like production.
Yeah.
Of like, how do I operate, Fruity Loops or GarageBand or like basic tools.
Yeah.
But it's just hearing your stuff is truly like, wow, like you can. This is what you're able to do with
Right.
this software.
Yeah.
Um, and it really has made me think, well, let me try this. Let
Yeah.
me see
Yeah.
what we're doing. So it's inspiring. So I appreciate you telling that story. I think it's important of like how your family has kind of helped
Yeah.
get that interest.
Right. Exactly.
Um,
I will say that, as I said before, like for you, and not just for you, for everyone. Like if it is, like I said, it's a lot to take in because there's a lot of information in front of you. But once you, like I said, just get past that hurdle of just try. Just be okay with the, like, hey, take a genre that you like and just experiment, and you'll learn more about the program, but you'll also learn more about you because you'll eventually develop your sound. Every band, artist, singer, producer, they have a sound. Even me, I realize I have a sound. Sometimes I feel like it's a double edged sword because I'm always thinking about, like, I kind of like always want to evolve. I don't want to just sound the same I sounded like last year. I'm thinking about, like, no, there's got to be a way to evolve. But that process of trial and error, you're learning more about the song, but you're also learning about music production, but you're also learning more about yourself. You're learning more, what does my sound like? What is my what makes me sound different from the next person? And that's a very important factor.
Yeah, I think you brought up a good point that speaks a lot to just music in general and the arts in general, which is that you have to really put yourself out there and actually try. Because it's not going to come day one. You pick up an instrument or you start learning like a new format or digital audio workstation. No, you got to try, and you're gonna fail a few times, and it might not sound great at first, but if you keep at it, eventually you will develop. And I think you're saying this as well, of like your own sound, right? And that is a skill in itself, and that takes a lot of practice. That doesn't just come with like doing it once. You really got to practice and try at it, which kind of says a lot about. It's a good message for, and I'm a teacher, so like I always think about like kids, right? That's really important for them too, because they are upcoming, and like this is something a lot of them are interested in doing. But it helps to build that self-confidence and that skill of just, okay, I have to try this again. I didn't get what I wanted. That's okay. I'm going to move on and get better. So I think that's a really important kind of message you took it out of
that. Right. But now let's dive into Mr. Derek here. Let's see what was your intro to music as a kid? What was that like?
Yeah. I think for myself, when I started, growing up, my brother, I have an older brother, he's about 5 years older than me. We lived, in the same, our parents' house, our rooms were very close together. So growing up, I would always hear the music that he was playing in his room because he would, blast it and it would be loud, and our walls were like paper thin, so you could hear everything. And I think my interest came from what he listened to. So a lot of the music he listened to was a lot of the music I was listening to because I was hearing it from him. So like Blink-182, Green Day, all these like pop punk bands that I still listen to today, it came from him. And I think it kind of sparked this interest in music because again, I was elementary school, I didn't know what I was doing, of course. But listening to his music, I was kind of, oh, this is cool. Like, I want to get into this. Like, what's happening here? Specifically, I remember Blink-182. What was that album? Take Off Your Pants and Jacket. Great album. But it's really like Travis Barker, who's the drummer for Blink-182, is very talented. He started playing as a marching snare drummer, and then kind of took that and applied it to the drum kit. So he's known for his, speed and wild fills that he'll do. So I think that aspect of it, my brother introducing me to that type of music, and then me learning more about Travis, I was like, I would like to get started into drums. This is something that's kind of interesting to me, and that really inspired me to learn how to play it. So from that, I went to, our elementary school. We had concert band, but at the time they weren't doing, for whatever reason, you couldn't play drums until you were a third grader. I don't know why they thought that was like the proper age for drummers for whatever reason. I think it was just because they didn't want it too loud. Because I don't know if you've ever heard a concert band of elementary schoolers. It's it's nothing to write home about. But I remember, third grade finally came around, and told my parents, and I got my first snare drum, and it was this beautiful pearl steel snare drum. The thing sounded like a cannon when it was tuned right. No, it was great. Um, but I remember, I'm a little third grade, and this drum was like taller than me, like on that stand. I was like, what am I doing here? But it was great, and it was my first experience of like I had to learn how to read music, sheet music. I had to play with a band, so I had to like listen to my parts versus everybody else in the band, and I think that also continued my interest in music, because it's not just a solo thing. You have to learn to play with others, and that was really cool. And if you ever talk to my brother, he'll never live this down. He wanted to play the drums. My parents would not allow that for some reason when he was growing up. But when I came around, little Derry came around, they were like, absolutely, we're going to get you a snare drum. So
no resistance.
That's the best part about being the baby in the family, is you kind of, you get what you want. But
I'm the baby son, so I get it.
Yeah, no, perfect. See, that's why this works. So sorry to my brother, but
Sorry, my brother too.
It worked out. No, but he played trumpet, which was a cool instrument, I guess. But he kind of gave up on that, I think, right after elementary school, because it was drums or nothing, and he never got drums. But to be fair, I did let him play my drum kit when we got older, so he had the experience at some point. It just came much later. So yeah, from there I went to high school, and then got my first drum kit, and that was a whole thing, because I didn't want to take lessons, but my dad was like, absolutely not, you have to take lessons. We're not doing this unless you actually learn how to play, which is great, because that pushed me to learn even more about drum set. Eventually went to college, and at the time it was very much like, I'm going to become a performer and like join Broadway and do all that stuff. And little did I know, they don't really get paid much. It's a very hard industry to get into. And I was just like, all right, I'm not doing that. And so my friend got me into music education, which, I did that. I got my degree in music ed and taught for a few years for music specifically. But unfortunately kind of learned the hard way that, music in schools is not really a priority, and they don't prioritize it, and teachers, especially music teachers, don't get paid really what they should be getting paid.
I agree.
So went back, kind of shifted where I wanted to go in education, and made the shift, but it kind of helped me, and I guess freed up some space where I could then join other avenues, such as like making bands and playing music at shows and enjoy it, outside of teaching music. So that's kind of how inspiration, kind of where it went from there.
Well, I have so as a drummer, what would you say is? All right, actually, let me take this. I have a side question. If you had to say, of all the songs you probably practiced on growing up, what would you say is the absolute perfect song for you that you can play right now, drum wise?
A song like I can just play.
Yeah.
It would have to be Yellow Card, Only One. And that comes to mind because that was literally like the first rock song I think I learned. Not even rock, that was like pop rock. I learned on the kit. But I practiced that for hours on end until I had it to a point where it sounded like the song. I don't think I nailed every part, but it's like if you listen to what I was doing, you would know what song that is. And I, to this day, I haven't actually played the drums probably now in like 4 or 5 years. But if I pick up a pair of sticks, I probably could remember most of it. Just because it's so ingrained in my head. Yeah. So, yeah, I would have to go with that. I could definitely rock out on some Yellow Card,
We have to try that one these days. And now, then I have so you also had experience in bands. Now, what was that like for young drummer Derek?
A lot of fun is the key thing there. Tons of fun. But it was a really good learning experience in the whole industry of just music performance, right? So I think the first thing was just getting started with a band and like meeting people who have similar interests. Um, the first band I was in, I don't even know how I met him. I think it was on MySpace, uh, whatever platform that was, but MySpace. But he lived pretty far from me. It was like 20, 30 minutes away. But he had a nice studio in his basement. His dad, I believe, was a professional musician and was doing so for a few decades. So he let us use like his equipment, and through that, we had a few different guitar players and bass players, but eventually it was actually a few of my close friends joined as a guitar player, keyboardist. We had a couple bass players, but once we had that lineup and just the routine of practicing, you really learn how to like tighten up your songs, right? Like you have these ideas, but it's like, how do we turn these ideas into something that's like a good song? That takes a lot of practice. So just learning that routine and then going into, now we're going to play shows. And that was a whole learning curve because it's playing shows. You're not just playing your song. It's like, how do you sound good live? Because it can sound different in different venues. So even there, like learning a little bit about, sound production, like how do you make it sound good? But then also like the whole, doing shows. You have to sell X amount of tickets or you have to pay for those tickets you don't sell. And like, that's what we had to do most of the time was because we didn't have a lot of fans at the beginning. It's like mostly our families. We had to sell 50 tickets, but we would only sell 20. So we had to buy the 30 we had to do to play the show. So a lot of, you learned a little bit about the industry and how it's not cheap. You got to pay to play. And then from there, it's the recording, right? So we quickly learned how expensive just recording is. And it's usually like you pay by the hour for somebody, and it's it could be anywhere from $100 an hour to like $500 an hour, depending on who it is, right? And I'm sure you've had that experience, right, as well.
So we were talking about the studio process, and for me, like growing up, I was watching my brother. He was a producer. He used to work with all different types of artists. And when we go to the studio and we would look at like the whole recording process, he's working with them and everything. And I'm just like, oh, this is really cool. And this is me as a listener. I'm just there for the vibes. I'm just like, okay, this is really cool. This is dope, watching everything. And then at some point in time, I learned how much they cost studio sessions by hour. Even though I had nothing to do with it, the just hearing that alone gave me anxiety. I was like, "Oh no, this is expensive." And then it hit me with the fact that you would have to love what you do despite these hurdles. So if it's like if you're a producer, a recording artist, or anything like that, knowing that you would have to put in all kinds of time, effort, money to do it, and especially if you're unsigned, it's such a you have to love what you do it. Like you have to love what you're doing. There's no other fuel that can ever get you to that point or get you past that point. So,
yeah. I mean, it's truly like unless you're signed, you are giving them all of your money at all times.
You're bankrolling everything.
Like you are now the you're bankrolling all of that. But I'm not going to continue on that. But yeah, it's wild how much money you got to spend, and like it's. I mean, I can't imagine like for both of us, it's just you're paying by that hour, and you're paying that employee so much money. It's hundreds of dollars per hour, and yeah, that's why. I mean, that's really why people get signed. It's to get that service and not really pay for it. Company will pay for it. But yeah, that's a lot of work, a lot of money that you got to give. So it's a passion of love, because otherwise, what are you doing?
Right. And that's something that I think we can discuss in a later episode regarding like what is it like to be unsigned or signed, and we can discuss like the comparison in those worlds. But needless to say, you got to love what you do. There's no other like to knowing that you have to do this, get that, organizing the logistics of it all, and then still be able to, let's say you have 3 hours to execute it at that same time on whether it's on tempo or on the line and everything. Like it takes so much on the logistical side of it all, and then you also have to now you have to record, or I have to perform. And I'm gonna have my A game today, because I don't have to explain it to you, because you probably know it. There's some days where Derek is on time with every single like hit, with like the tempo, everything. And and then there's days where Derek's like, I can't get this today. And the same thing with me. There's times I can produce for hours, and then there's days I can't even get out of my own head. And so it just basically illustrates how much of like passion is needed in order to, despite knowing that, to continue. Yeah.
No, and that was a good point. It is, I quickly learned as a drummer the importance of practicing with a metronome, a click track, because the faster that I can get the songs done to a click and be on beat, be on time, whatever, the cheaper it is, right? Because that's less time we have to spend recording drums or re-recording parts,
Right.
and we give more time to like the guitar player or singer. And honestly, the vocal tracks I always remember take the longest, because that's the hardest.
Right.
You got to make sure your pitches are right and the person singing it like does it. So the faster that the drummer can do it, it saves money for everybody, I think. And that was something I quickly learned. Practice with a click all the time. That's literally your life.
Right.
And the main point of the drums. So, yeah, and I think, we've talked a lot about your inspirations, my inspirations, the journey we've kind of taken, and how we developed our interest in music. So, I think that kind of goes back to like, why are we doing this podcast, right? Of like, exactly. And I think you said it before, when we were previously recording and setting up our technology and having a bunch of failures.
Like I said, failures.
Right, exactly. Just so everyone knows, this is like our 40th take of doing this. So this is the best it's gonna sound today. And that's fine. We're learning. But no, I think you said it really well before. I don't know if you want to kind of say it again. What the point of this podcast?
I mean, we want to show our love for music as fans, and then also as like as a whether me as a producer, you as a drummer, now producer, and like we want to show and illustrate like music, whether we're obviously going to talk about almost every single genre. We want to explain and the history, the love that had to go into it, from artists to bands to like, we want to illustrate that the music that we love and we listen to as a fan, how much went into that, and then as well as highlight the beauty and the impact it had on our cultures and a society, whether it's from the 60s, 70s to current day. And also at the same time, and I think you and I can agree on this, is that I think the side thing, this is a little thing for me, is I hope it gives people the inspiration they need to take a leap of faith in, hopefully, well, ideally music, but any creative endeavor that you're interested in. So I know that I'll speak from my experience. When you're working with a digital audio workstation, whether it's Fruity Loops, Ableton, Logic, etc., it's very jarring at first, because there's so much information and there's so much tools in front of you that you're nervous. And even to get the point of getting the tools, you're nervous. Right. And then you don't want to fail. You want you want your projects to to be perfect, and I guarantee you, you're gonna fail. It's okay. Trust me, I failed more times than I could probably count, actually. But that failure has strengthened my love for music, and I hope that I think you and I can both agree on is we hope that this will give you the courage to take that leap of faith. And now, when I look at my production software or any production software, instead of nervous, I'm curious. And I learned to look at it all as like a sandbox. And I'm just curious what, how much flexibility can I have? So, and that's the beauty of music production is it's where creativity and technical aspect meet. So you have to understand, which you and I would discuss about music theory, chords, progressions, understanding like tone and all these things. And then as well as now that you have an understanding of the technical aspects, what are you going to do with it? What does Derek, what does Pat, what does the next person, what are they going to do with these tools that's in front of them now?
And that's a nice little way to kind of wrap this all up. But yeah, the whole point of this, and I agree with you 100%, of doing this podcast is, along with us just talking about music, which I think we both really enjoy doing, is to really inspire others to, like you said, take that leap of faith, and explore what you're curious about in art, whether it's, visual art or, music. Take that leap of faith because, if you don't do that first step, you're never going to know. Right. And I think that's what we share a lot in common is we both just kind of, we had our inspirations, but we took that step of like, I'm going to try this drum out or I'm going to try this new software and see where it goes. Because you really have to explore it in order to get better at it. Like anything in life.
Yes,
so with all that said, I think it's a good stopping point here of, really excited to explore this podcast and see where it goes. Sneak peek of what's coming up. We're going to definitely next week be talking about our creation process, our unique perspectives on how we have created music in the past and how we have pulled from our inspiration to create the art that we have made.
Yeah.
So, really excited about that. And we have... Thank you for listening to today's episode. We would love to hear from you.
If you have any questions, comments, or ideas, please email us at musicmusingspodcast@gmail.com.